All right, everyone, keeping in mind that Joe Biden is not officially the president-elect because you have outstanding litigation pending before the Supreme Court, let's argue, which is the likelihood, the 95% chance, that he is eventually officiated as the President of the United States this following President's Day. There are a lot of people on the right that think that the sky is falling. The nation will never be the same. Everything will fall apart, and civil war and stuff. Time to calm down and have a little bit of rationalism injected into the situation. I support Trump. I want him to be declared president. I believe that the election was fraudulent and that Trump, while he has gotten a bum deal from the legacy media, he was a pretty damn good president and will be for another 4 years again if SCOTUS gets off his ass and does what it's constitutionally obligated to do. John Roberts, however, is a little bit of a sticking factor in getting that to actually happen. So keeping in mind that we have a phony-ass Chief Justice on the Supreme Court going forward, there's a little bit of a problem, I would say. By the way, Coney Barrett never should have recused herself in the ongoing issues that are going on in the Supreme Court. She should have refused to do so. Then you'd have a 5-4 decision and all this litigation wouldn't be pending. It would be actively being discussed at the moment. I think Clarence Thomas wants to pick a bone with Biden. We'll see what happens anyway. But keep this in mind. You gotta stop worrying so much and look at reality the way it really is. Like right now, the far left is trying to pressure Joe Biden to do the things that they want him to do. Trust me, it ain't gonna happen. You're not gonna get a new Green Deal because the new Green Deal is bullshit. What you're more likely to see, and Kasich is a forerunner of this. The BitChute exclusive today, I'll be laughing about John Kasich. You remember who that is? The hungry candidate from 2016 who always gave press conferences while scarfing down lasagna and shit, and he's just a goddamn mess, Ohio governor. And he got thrown under the bus earlier. AOC calling him out because he went on TV and he's like, well, what's wrong with the Democratic Party ultimately is the far left. It's the progressives. And AOC, rebutting that. And it's just really funny. He's trying to encourage, of course, the Democratic Party to come to its senses. Well, they don't want to come to their senses. Elon Omar, Rashida Tlaib, basically the Gang of Four with AOC and that, what is the name, Presley or something. And similar people, the Bernie babies of the party, they want to lurch off into socialism. That's why Biden has stacked his campaign platform with a bunch of far-left issues, but he's not going to actually fulfill any of them. The most meaningful thing that Joe Biden will do if he's truly sworn in as president is be a goddamn Alzheimer's-ridden disgrace with other people calling the shots, and those people, believe it or not, are not progressive minds. AOC is not calling the shots within the Democratic Party. Do you remember a couple years ago when she and other far-left Democrats were making a goddamn nonsensical mockery of the party's platform and they basically got told by Nancy Pelosi to shut the hell up? All the Hillary Clintons and Bidens of the party fucking hate these people because they're a thorn in the side of the party. Kasich is fundamentally correct. This is the schismatic nature of the Democratic Party, and they haven't learned from history. If they win this election, they won in a squeaker against a dude reigning over a wrecked economy during a pandemic. Keeping in mind that they barely pulled a win out of their asses using ballot fraud, in my opinion, my humble opinion, even no matter how obvious it is, against a man who they spent 4 years labeling as the less intelligent version of Goebbels. Keeping that in mind, do you really think that they have a mandate going forward for goddamn anything? It looks like they're going to fail to have the Senate. They've lost more power in the House. They failed to gain a single state legislature and managed to lose one. Some people are pointing out it's amazing how many people only voted at the top of the ticket. It is interesting how there's a significant irregularity between the down-ballot races across multiple states and the presidential race. That's more evidence of fraud, but again, the MSM hopes that you won't actually take that into consideration. Joe Biden, if elected, is basically a lame duck from day one. Here's the meaningful things that he'll do. He'll make a half-assed attempt towards gun control. He will fail. Members of his own party will eventually balk, because what happens with the Dems on guns is they start off by saying something milquetoast and lukewarm, like, hey, we want to ban the production of 50-round AR drums or something. But then the far left comes along and keeps inserting riders onto the proposed legislation until it becomes unpassable. Because Joe Manchin and people like that exist in the Senate, and because there are a handful of Democrats in the House that would side with the Republicans because their constituencies are more rural. And people there don't want gun control. There are a lot of people in the House that are Democrats that are fundamentally pro-gun, and a few Republicans that are anti-gun. Mitt Romney, of course in the Senate, not in the House. It's not going to happen, though, dude. If there's anything passed, it'll be basically by executive order. The Gravel Institute is like, well, if Joe Biden wants, he can pass an executive order to eliminate all student loan debt. Number one, constitutionally, no, he can't. There are limits on executive orders. As we've seen, Obama tried to grant blanket amnesty that way years ago and failed when the Supreme Court, in I believe, a unanimous decision, told him to fuck off. That would not be an executive power, and if you actually did that, you would be putting about 1 million people in banking out of business. You realize that, correct? Roughly 1 million people would lose their jobs. It wouldn't, by the way, it's not just like, the student loan servicing companies and their employees. There are people that truck paper in and out to those companies, losing contracts in such a situation. They have attorneys and accountants and so forth that work for them as well. They lose business. It's not going to happen. Joe Biden will raise your taxes incrementally, but that won't be the result of actual tax hikes in the strictest essence. It would be the result of the tax cuts expiring, the ones that Trump passed. The most immediate effect is that the brackets after a couple years incrementally rise, and then the FICA offset, which benefits me hugely, that goes away in a few years, so I'd have to tighten my belt a little bit. I wouldn't be making as much headway. Yes, a Biden presidency means you will be poor. You will lose money. Some of you, your heads will be shoved back underwater. Essentially, the American Spring, Morning in America thing that we were looking at under Trump, will turn out to be nothing more than a fluke. A very short Indian summer, a short period of reprieve before the bad times come back. But we survived those times already, didn't we? We spent 8 years under Obama in a deep recession with a neoliberal government that sold us out to foreign nations, and we've had presidencies before that were even worse than that. FDR existed. Yeah, we literally did have a president put people in concentration camps on an ethnic basis for re-education purposes and so forth. We had that happen before. We've had socialists literally leading the country before with bread lines everywhere. We suffered through a Great Depression. We've been in multiple wars, and I don't mean drone strikes. We can survive this. It just means that it becomes a little bit harder. The worst possible thing that could happen if Biden is sworn in the immediate sense, the most possibly bad thing that happens is that he somehow manages to pass a 3-month mandatory nationwide lockdown. That would cause a depression. To be clear, that's the worst case scenario. Even if that happens, though, it'll echo throughout the world, and for years and years things will be fucked up. He might get removed from office for doing so. The Republicans might get their balls up in the midterms, sweep the House and Senate, and remove him from office. That's always a possibility. By the way, today there are protests planned at every state capital in the country based on the fraudulent election, and I encourage people to peacefully join those protests if they happen to be able to do so. It's funny because Biden fans right now are having like block parties and stuff, totally not social distancing. Well, I thought Biden fans were so pro-science. Oh, look at all the super spreader events. 2 weeks from now, so many Americans will be keeling over. Who will get the blame for it, of course? Trump, regardless of what happens election-wise. Oh, well, it must have been Trump. He cast a miasma spell on the population to make more people die out of malevolence because he lost, because he's Orange Hitler. That's what they'll say. But stop worrying. We've weathered worse than Beijing Biden, and he's just a figurehead. He wouldn't even really be in control. The same people that controlled things during the Bush and Obama administrations, which were not happy times, but we survived them, those people will be in charge. It won't be Kamala either. They'll probably knock Joe Biden off at some point just so they can claim some sort of weird warped victory by having the first female president of color, which will be a goddamn farce because she was never elected in the first place. She couldn't have gotten elected if she had been the candidate. She would have come in way behind Biden. All the rigging in the world wouldn't have flipped the election for Kamala Harris. Most Democrats fucking hate her guts. She's the least likable person in U.S. politics other than maybe Ilhan Omar at the moment. That's about all. Peace out.